If you'd like to support my content, another way aside from my Patreon that you can do so is you can consider purchasing some gamer subs. If you want a caffeine sauce that doesn't have fillers, has a nice smooth long plateau with a nice taper off, there's no nasty crash in there, I would suggest check them out. They're sugar-free. You get 100 servings in a tub that big, cause there's no fillers. You can get 10% off with my code Thorin at gamersubs.gg. I would suggest one of the newer flavors. How about cherry limesicle? It's quite delicious, actually, as the name suggests. Now, for me, a massive part of the food experience isn't just one type of food and what it tastes like. It's actually the complementary taste of this type of food with this, with maybe a sauce, with even sometimes what you drink with it, the time of day that you have it, how well cooked it is, little herbs and other things you add in. So, I mean, I even think one of the most underrated aspects of people cooking for themselves is they don't put enough salt onto the meat that they have. And so, mainly due to health fear-mongering, but as a result, they're not realizing salt's an enhancer. It'll bring out all the other flavors of that vegetable, of that meat. It'll make something taste incredible. Similarly, in a lot of restaurants, they're just putting loads and loads of butter basted into the meat and the steak, etc. That's part of what's making it taste so rich. By the way, a little pro tip, if you're making yourself some pasta at home, put some butter into the pan that you then put the pasta into. It's going to taste so much more rich, even though it might just be some bog standard pasta that you're just cooking and maybe even out of a pack. Maybe it's not even fresh. I actually think meat itself can be completely transformed by the right side, the right sauces. It doesn't matter how good it is, how bad it is. This can just be a game changer in terms of it. And so for me, sauces are an area that are so undervalued. It's an area so undervalued, and they themselves are so undervalued, mainly just because people don't know about it. Like, especially in terms of world cuisine. As I've traveled around the world and tried different cultures' food, and especially the way it was traditionally prepared there, and I've gone to all sorts of levels of restaurants, sauces is one of the biggest areas where you find that the next level of taste is unlocked and you get really amazing tasting food. You can't just go home and try and cook that type of meat with that type of side on its own and think it's going to be anywhere close. And I will say, from my experience, the craziest thing is these things are largely actually still siloed within their countries, within their cultures. And even if you go to a restaurant, like for example, I go to Korean barbecue places all the time, and they never explain to people which meat goes with which sauce and which one will be better with salt on it. They don't even have often the sesame salt sauce for the samgyeopsal, for example, the belly pork. They don't explain any of this. They don't explain which one you put into the leaf, which one's better on its own. They don't even tell you how much to cook it. They just figure out that you'll figure it out yourself. Everyone's heard of Korean barbecue and raved about it, and they just hope it works out for you, but you're not going to have the best experience. So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of sauces from different cuisines around the world that I've discovered, and actually I would suggest giving a try to. It might surprise you. So the first one is going to be a Balkan sauce called ajvar. And it is basically made out of, I think it's made of paprika and eggplant or something like that. It's what you get if you go to a Balkan place that serves cevapi or cevapcici or whatever they call it in Serbia, Croatia, let me think, Romania. These sorts of places are where you're going to find that food. And this is what you put with it. On its own, it can be nice. Put a bit of salt on, you have the meat, you have the bread. But this is what's going to bring it to the next level, is this type of a sauce. It just pairs really, really well with the contrasting flavour of the strong spiced aspect of the meat. Not actually spicy, but spiced. Mixing with this particular sauce just goes so well. It makes it taste really delicious. One that people will have heard of from Korean barbecue, but they maybe just don't know what it is obviously Korean ssamjang. Now, this is a red bean paste that has a bit of spice. Everywhere tends to prepare it a little bit differently, but there's sort of an aggregate flavour you're going for. If it's a little bit too dark and it's too brown, probably going to be a little bit bitter for me. If it's too red and it's too weak, it's just going to taste too much just like bean, as it were. You have to get a quite fine balance, but when you do it well, this is one of the best sauces to have with Korean barbecue. I will say I overdo it. Like, I see how much Koreans put on. They put a tiny bit and use every now. I've essentially dip every piece of meat, if it's Galbi, into that over and over again. I love the flavour. I find it really, really delicious. And for me, when you go to Korean barbecue, that one is primarily for when you're eating stuff like Galbi, the short rib. If you're going to have something like the samgyeopsal, it's going to be more with like some salt would be better for that. If you're going to have some marinated bulgogi, it probably tastes great on its own. It's got marinated that it's all been in for a long, long time. I find the Galbi pairs really, really well with this one. Another Korean one would be gochujang spicy mayonnaise. So as you can imagine, it's a spicy mayonnaise, but they're using gochujang And this is one where it has such a unique flavor profile. I would even say you'll often find it in places that do Korean fried chicken. But I would actually say a pro tip is try having it with some of that pre-cooked bacon where you get it as like strips of rashers of bacon that's already been cooked before and you can just eat fresh out the pack. Try dipping something like that, a strongly flavored meat, into this mayonnaise, and the flavor profile you're going to get from the beginning to the end is going to be really good. It has sort of a nice closing flavor to that. There's one that I know in France especially, but I found this actually in a lot of Turkish type restaurants, is called gypsy sauce. I'm not actually sure what it's made of. I had looked at a whole bunch of different suggestions as to how the recipes go. I would say this goes really well though with skewered food. So if we're talking like if you're eating sort of Turkish kebabs, the Adana, etc., or if you had like sort of Greek kebab skewered, or Georgian food. If people don't know, Georgian food is mad underrated. It's delicious, just essentially cooked meats, but really, really lovely. A classic British one, but the problem is Americans hear this term and they don't know what it is. Europeans have sort of their version of it, but it's a bit different, is of course gravy, British gravy. So this is mainly oftentimes used in stock, like you use like chicken stock, beef stock. Oftentimes what you do is if you were cooking a roast, like a roast chicken, a roast lamb, roast beef, you take the fat and the juices of that and you use it to make and flavour the gravy. And obviously in places like France, they'll often call this jus, won't they? Because it's like the juice of the meat, and they'll make that into a sort of a gravy. In America, you can sometimes get one where they call it like a French dip, don't they? You have like a sandwich with the roast meat and then you dip it into that. Well, imagine you just had a plate of that food with potatoes and veg, and then you could pour as much as you want all over the top and eat it and enjoy it. We're not talking about that bullshit Americans have when they call it gravy for Thanksgiving, or in the South, that weird grey stuff that they have with like Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever. This is actually one of the things that makes the roast dinner for me. It's why when people talk shit on British food and ask them have they had this roast dinner with gravy, and they go, no, it's like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They shut the fuck up, you idiot. So one thing I'll say is this goes fantastically with a roast dinner. You essentially put it over every aspect of the roast dinner, and mostly there's never enough gravy, essentially, if you do it right. Also, as a side, goes really well with chips, which people in the UK know, but again, foreigners don't. The only ones who do is obviously our distant cousins in Canada, because that's what poutine comes from, right? It's fries, chips with gravy on, and then they put cheese curds on there because they're demented and partially French, right? I personally don't like cheese curds, so I just often even order poutine if I'm in America without the cheese curds. Just delicious gravy with fries. I would say for that type of even though for some roasts, you're going to want a lighter, more watery gravy, I would say if you can have it with fries like that, you want it to be more like a sauce. The thicker, the better, and the stronger the flavour, the better, to really go well with, because obviously potato is quite bland on its own. You obviously put the sauce on, there's salt on that too, though, to bring some flavour out, right? Another British one that they don't seem to have in other countries is just mint sauce. It's essentially a sort of vinegary, preserved sauce that has literally bits of mint, and you can see the little leaves of mint in it. I'm not talking about like a yogurty sauce or like the one that the Indians have where it like cools you down with the raita or whatever they call it when they're having the fucking spicy food, because obviously you need like something yogurty or has lactose in it in some way to help in that sense. This is one where, as I say, it's much more in the vein of something vinegary. And if you have this, it goes insanely well on roast dinners that have vegetables and meat. In fact, famously, if you don't like certain vegetables, you don't like carrots or parsnips or mashed swede. I'm not talking about the time that Flusher got high. Or you don't like, famously, the one is Brussels sprouts. If you put this mint sauce on it, it will actually become edible. I'm telling you, and some gravy, and you have some meat with it, it'll actually start to it might even taste nice, believe it or not. I would say that mint sauce goes insanely well with roast lamb. There are certain sauces we have in the UK. You have like the horseradish one, goes with, I think, beef. You often have an apple sauce with a pork. With chicken, you can have all sorts. With lamb, you pair it with mint. That's what it goes. It's why when you make lamb kebabs, they often have mint spiced elements in it. So it just pairs very, very well in that sense. But so many foreigners don't seem to actually appreciate what the gravy is like. And they definitely know fuck all about mint sauce when it comes to a roast dinner. Another British one is going to be brown sauce, sometimes called chippy sauce if you're in like Scotland, because in Scotland is actually what they tend to put on the fish and chips, not the tomato ketchup / the Heinz that we're all used to. The famous brand of this is called Daddy's, believe it or not. Now, the thing about this is, by the way, if you're in Scotland as well, you just tell them to put the sauce on it, and they'll put way more than you would ever ask for, but it'll actually be delicious as a result. You just wouldn't have the balls to put so much insane amount of sauce on the food. This is made of, like, when I looked it up, it didn't really help at all. So this is made out of tomatoes, molasses, dates, apples, tamarind, spices, and vinegar. So that doesn't really give you a sense of what it's going to taste like. But all I'll say is it's got like a tiny, maybe sort of zing to it. And I would say the most famous thing British people, mainly English people, like to use this for is this is the sauce you put on a bacon sandwich. You might use like ketchup on your fries or on other things, but on the bacon sandwich, so that like, remember, British bacon is the back bacon. It's not the streaky bacon. And it tends to be very salty and it's quite a strong flavour. This pairs really well because of the zing that sort of comes in afterwards. And then also inside the bread, it all just works together. It's got a really, really nice balanced profile. And if you've ever had one of those types of bacon sandwich, there's a reason why people prefer that sauce. There's one that they sell here in the Netherlands. Now, what's funny is in the Netherlands, in McDonald's, they have a friet sauce. Friet sauce normally is the type of meal with like a bit more oil in or something. And normally that would taste more like mayonnaise. Now, in their McDonald's, they call it American friet sauce, even though as far as I can tell, it was never American, and they don't sell this in America. And it's actually a type of friet sauce that has like a pickly component to it. It goes so well with fries, it is insane. Well, you can actually just buy a bottle of this from any supermarket, Albert Heijn in the Netherlands, or order online. It's called Mad Sauce, and the bottle has like the colours of the American flag. You'll be able to find it quite easily. It just tastes really delicious, goes fantastically well with fries, any type of fries. Along those lines, either Dutch friet sauce or Dutch or Belgian mayonnaise. It's not like British mayonnaise. I don't like British mayonnaise. It is very eggy. It's all white, etc. This is the stuff that's more of a yellowy, creamier colour, and it just has a way more richer cream component almost to it. And I don't know how it's made, but it just tastes about 100 times better. There's a reason why in the Netherlands I have mayonnaise with fries, but in England I would have ketchup with fries. And if I was in Scotland, I would have the brown sauce. Maybe. I don't know about that, actually. I'm not that big fan, except if it's on the bacon sandwich. In Germany, now you can't get a straight answer on this. You could Google, you can ask people. As usual, most people don't even listen to what you're saying. They just listen to half of it, and then their brain, like it's a game show, goes, buzzer, is it just, you mean the garlic one? And they don't even listen to what you're saying, right? In Germany, when you go to most places, like in Cologne, the most famous place for the mega kebabs, still not as good as other countries, but they love to rave about because they're Germans, aren't they? Right? They have 3 types of sauce they'll give you. They'll give you like a sort of a sambal type of spicy chili sauce. They'll have the classic garlic one. And then there's a third one, isn't it? Oftentimes it can look a bit pink or a different colour. Now, I'm informed that that is cocktail sauce, which apparently is ketchup or chili sauce mixed with prepared horseradish. I don't know if that's accurate, because when I've looked online, it doesn't seem like that's the sauce. I've asked around, and people, even though they're having these kebabs and raving about them, they just don't know what the name of the sauce is. So, all right, mate. You're on a fucking list right there. What the fuck are you? You fake or something? You fake German. So you fucking Fassbender in Inglourious Bastards. So I would just say whatever that sauce is, if it is indeed cocktail, it goes really well with kebab. If you go to the best places, you want to try that sauce and it's going to taste really good. You can get it in Berlin as well. I imagine you can get it in all the German places, but they don't sell it in other kebab shops around the world. One that you'll have heard of, I just doubt you've ever attempted to use it in this way, is going to be honey mustard sauce. You can go right now and try to get the really yellow looking one, and you can get one of that from a supermarket right where you live, but you don't know what to pair it with. In Korea, when they do their fried chicken, which is different from how KFC is, this is the best sauce that goes with it. But they'll give you a little sachet, a small packet. I can tell you right now, look, it's not going to be good for your health to do this sparingly. But the times you do have fried chicken, if you get that and you dip in loads of this honey mustard sauce, it tastes so good. It is unbelievable. I probably gained like fucking 5 kilos living in Korea just off having my own bottle of the honey mustard sauce for all the fried chicken I was eating. Speaking of mustard, British Coleman's mustard, where you can buy it as the powder, is phenomenal on sandwiches. If you're going to have like some nice ham, let's say like a sort of Sorrento ham or Serrano ham, and you're going to have it, or Parma ham, and you're going to have it with some lovely bread, a little bit of veg. If you can get this and make up some of this mustard, which you literally just put some water in a little bowl, you whisk it around with a spoon until it's the consistency you want, and you put in as much or as little as you want of the mustard, so it'll get more spicy or less spicy. There'll be more of it or there'll be less of it. It'll be a bit more watery, it'll be a bit thicker. You can tailor how spicy you want it. This is going to make the sandwich go to another level completely and bring a flavour and a spiciness to it you're not going to be prepared for. When everyone says it, oh, they don't have any spices in Britain. So you're thinking of like Netherlands and fucking Germany, you cretin. You obviously know nothing about the British people. You mean the ones that all the guys drinking the lager, drink a Vindaloo, go and eat a Vindaloo. Do you know what that is? Look it up, you cretins. You know what the fuck you're talking about. Why do you think people love Nando's? They're banging that peri-peri sauce all over that shit. There's another thing. Foreigners going to England and going, this Nando's is basic. You just have some basic fried chicken, roasted chicken, you idiot. You didn't even put the sauce on. The point of going to Nando's, basically, is it's a vehicle to get the peri-peri sauce inside your body. That's what the chicken is at that point, and that's what the fries are. If you don't even put it on, what the fuck was the point in going? There's nothing cheeky about that. You just seem like more like your fucking cheeks experience than my cheeky Nando's. So I would just say on that one, on the British Coleman's mustard, just be very careful not to let it touch your tongue directly, though. That's why you want to put it inside the sandwich with a bunch of different layers. If that touches your tongue directly, you are going to find out how spicy that can be. As a quick aside, if you don't like seafood, and you've never liked the idea of sushi, even though it goes against the rules of how they tell you to eat sushi, I will say soy sauce with a little bit of the wasabi, which is just horseradish in the West or whatever, put that, I dip it into the rice part so I get the full flavour as I'm eating. They tell you not to do that and so only like dip it on the fish side of it. I'll just say it makes the basic sushi about 10 times better to eat. And it's not just the flavour of fish at that point in time, raw fish in your mouth. Even though these are more for the sweet side and the savoury side, and I don't really know where the line between sauce and something else ends. I would say a lot of foreigners also don't seem to know about English custard. Now, if you want to have like an apple crumble, like a blackberry pie, this is going to be so insanely lovely if you have some proper thick English custard with it. It's going to be really, really delicious and just add an extra element to it that on its own, in a lot of Europe, they just eat that stuff on its own or just with basic cream. Even for cream, there's a level above what people know. If you want to have some scones as we call them, with some jam on, you don't just put any old cream on there. You definitely don't eat without cream. You put clotted cream on there. That's the type that you're going to go and buy. And that is just going to be so much richer. And the texture of it's going to be so different to just normal cream or having nothing at all. So for me, sauces are a mega underrated game changer. They really can elevate all these different types of food. And unless you've been to all these places and you remember the names, you're just not going to ever think and remember these things and try them. And even you're going to say, oh, it's great there, but you don't know. You could just buy actually some of this stuff now or off the internet. You can just have it, pair it with these sorts of foods and these dishes when you're at home. This video was kindly supported by Bar Ado Mushroom. Want to get on Thorin's side and support me further? Well, thanks to my side channel Patreon, you can. And in doing so, gain some or all of the following perks. Find out upcoming guests for my interview series. They're fairly eclectic, aren't they? Ask me questions for my AMAs. Participate in exclusive, recorded for you, but never to be released conversations with myself. Gain access to private channels on my Discord. Select topics I will address in future videos and many more. To find out more or to subscribe yourself, go to the Patreon link in the description box below.